your host for the session, and thank you for tuning in. That's it. If you guys want to contribute to our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we are doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. Now, let's jump right into it. For this edition of the Reality Bang, let's talk about gratitude. And of course, we have Johan here with us. It's great to have you back on the show.
Good to be back. Different. This is different Johan, different background.
Yeah, I'm in the studio today. Okay,
Yes.
so let's jump right into it. So, my very first question is now, what does gratitude mean to you, and do you practice how do you practice it in your daily life?
For me, I think the one thing, like just to remember myself, gratitude is not to take things for granted. That is one thing I always try reminding myself of, because I don't know. There's a part of me where I feel uh, like the moment you will start complaining about something, and then you realize sometimes it's a privilege complaint. And you don't at points you don't end up realizing the sort of like a privilege sort of a complaint you have, and then you should look back and realize, if you think of my life, like financially things have never been difficult for my parents. We have been
Mhm.
financially well, and that way things have been going well for us. And I have moved to three different cities my life in general, and moving from one city to another has been a difficulty for a lot of people, but from me personally, there were difficulties. I'm not going to say there are not been difficulties, but now in hindsight, I really, the things were not very bad for me to the point I was completely isolated or anything like that. For
Mhm.
different reasons. So I think in those ways, I'm very, grateful for every situations that have been, which could have been worse for a lot of people, because the thing is, my parents are missionaries. So they have
Okay.
traveled. So they lived in different places, and they traveled in different. They were in different fields, and I know the struggles a lot of other missionary kids have faced. They have lived in hostels their whole life, and some of them got to meet their parents maybe once or twice in a year itself. And
Mhm.
I didn't have to lead the hall, live in a hostel, or I didn't have to live away from my parents. I ended up living in cities my whole life. I ended up getting good education in that way. And I studied, like, for me, like, I've never, like, go left my house and gone and studied somewhere else. I've always studied, like, I know, and a lot of people who move out of home and go and study in different cities and work in different cities. I didn't have to do any of that. My house right now is literally just 2 kilometers away from the office. So, and, and so I think these small sort of things that I will never complain about unnecessarily. I think I always keep reminding myself about these things. What about you?
Yeah. Uh, Gratitude just basically means you're just really grateful for everything that happened in your life. For me, there's a lot of stuff that happened like the past 2 years, 3 years ever since I graduated. A lot of stuff has been happening, and
Mm.
there's one quote that always comes to mind, like, never take any situation happening in your life negatively. Always, look at it from a positive aspect. Like, okay, this is happening to me, thank you, it's happening to me, and just figure out like how you can turn a negative situation into a positive situation. So even when I had to leave my job because of my accident and then my own mental health and all of that, now I didn't know where else to turn. But then again, I had to look at it in a positive aspect. I didn't have a choice. It's either you take it in a positive aspect or that's it, you have nothing else to do.
Mm.
And that's when I figured, okay, let's go for law. Let's see how that'll go. And now it's going beautifully, really
Mm.
well. And of course, like there are certain things like, when you took a gap of 2 years, you work for 2 years, and then you go back into studies. That's a whole different topic in itself. But I'll
Mm.
just give you a gist of it. It's really hard sometimes that you're just, studying from this hour to this hour, and then you just have nothing else to do other than just go home, study. If anything interests you in, in the day's lecture, and then you have to study. But in work, you're, you know, occupied for that entire 8 hours of duration.
Mm.
And best of all, you're getting paid for everything in college. You don't get paid at all. So I think I just have to get used to the fact that, I'm just sitting and just looking at my bank account, and there's, no money credited to my account at the end of the month.
Yeah.
But then again, what am I getting out of it? I'm really grateful for the fact that I get to study.
Hmm.
Many people, they don't have that opportunity. Once they start working, they have to, keep working because of various other situations. Now, I'm not in that situation,
Hmm.
and I can't say that, I am blessed not to be in that situation. But I can say at the very least, I'm grateful that, everything that's been happening, everything that I've, endured for the past 2 years, it is all led up to this point. And, I'm going to keep being grateful, like good, bad, just keep going with it. Just have
Hmm.
great, because God has a bigger plan in your life. And I have no clue what the plan is.
Yeah.
And nobody does, to be honest. But
Hmm.
always just be grateful that there's a bigger plan for you in the future. And you know
Hmm.
never stop going forward. That's it.
Yeah, like for me, I think, sometimes I don't realize, like sometimes that we don't end up realizing that, there are so many things we'll end up taking for granted. There are a lot of people
Exactly.
will, have to really struggle to get it. And,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes when things go well for us in that way, we don't end up realizing, that sort of an advantage and that sort of a privilege that we do have. And I think that's something I always keep, myself in mind. Because I know there are some people who travel literally, like in college itself, I knew people who are traveling like 30-35 kilometers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds, and for me, I've never had to travel that much my whole life. And it was
Mhm.
normal for them traveling 2-3 hours, one way traveling 2-3 hours was a completely normal thing for them, and I didn't have any of that difficulties.
Mhm.
School was always nearby for me, college was always nearby for me. And so in that way, I'll never like complain. Like work wise also for me, I'm getting to do a lot of things where in other places I know so many people who they don't get to do much things. Like I'm
Mhm.
getting to do designing, editing, I'm getting to do video shooting, I'm
Mhm.
getting to do all these multiple things. And luckily, they give me that sort of a freedom. I can do the things exactly the way I want. I don't have any like sort of, there's no like I know in other places where that sort of a creative control is there, where the higher person sometimes won't listen. And
Mhm.
that sort of an advantage I have, where people are willing to listen to what I want to do. And
Yeah.
these small things I think we should be grateful for, because
Mhm.
in I think we have to look overall, there are other people who don't have that advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Now, can you share a recent moment when you actually felt truly grateful,
Hmm.
and how did it impact your mood or outlook?
So recent means it's not very very recent, but I think in the 1.5 years since I've joined FIBA, I would probably say one of the things that I've been grateful for is working here. Why I'm saying
Mhm.
this is because I took 1.5 years. I took a year break, and
Mhm.
I didn't learn anything from that 1.5 years. Neither I tried applying for jobs, I didn't get in. There were some places I got in, unnecessarily I ended up rejecting a lot of those things because it was not the way I wanted. It didn't work out the way that I wanted to. And at home my parents were really like they were very worried, they were concerned
Mhm.
about what I was going to do, and where I was going to work, and they were very concerned about that. And
Mhm.
my dad was the one who really pushed me and asked me to apply over here. And I did apply for FIBA, and I was very grateful that they gave me a job over here. And to be very frank, I don't know, if I didn't work here, then I don't know how much longer break I would have taken.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that would have been much worse, because I think that is one thing I thought at that time in my life, I had to take that break. But then now I look back and realize, if I wasted so much time. And
Mhm.
I think that is the worst thing. And I think that's one of the reasons when you go and apply for a job, and like when you take that break, they ask you why. It's because you waste time, that that a lot of people end up losing jobs because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And because they have taken that sort of a break. And for me, and I had no valid reason to even take that break. I
Mhm.
ended up, I necessarily took that long break, and I didn't learn benefit from it. And and there's no way I didn't learn from it. I wasted a lot of time, and I think there's a part of me where I feel very guilty also in that 1.5 years in one way,
Mhm.
because of the concern my parents had. I felt very guilty about the fact that that they were concerned, because 1.5 years people would come and ask, what are you doing? And that is the worst question. I didn't want to have in any function and any event we go. They would ask that question, and I was like, I'm trying to find a job, I would say, for 1.5 years. And I knew it's something my parents didn't like. And
Mhm.
there are so many times my dad has yelled at me. I mean, it's pretty crazy how many times my dad has just yelled at me for taking such a long break. But then I think one of the best things my dad ever did was he pushed me, and I think that push was very necessary for me. And I think that's one thing I'm very grateful for. If I feel like, if he didn't give me that sort of a push, I don't know how much longer I would have taken a break, and that would have been much worse for me also. Because to be
Mhm.
very frank, that 1.5 years was very, I, I want to. It was very isolating also, because it was a bit embarrassing also for me. Like all my friends are working, and they would ask, "What are you doing?" And I'm not doing anything. It was a little bit, yeah. You feel a little bit ashamed of the fact that you are just wasting your time. So
Mhm.
and now the fact that from 1.5 years of taking a break and wasting time to now, I'm getting to do a lot of things every day. I have a lot of work to do, and
Mhm.
I think I'll never complain about the fact that there's a lot of work for me to do, because it's, at least for me, I feel like it's better than not doing absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in that way, I'm grateful, that one push that my dad gave me, and that's something I'll always be very grateful for.
Mhm. Well, for me, it's a little bit of a different scenario. I'll say I'm grateful for every day,
Hmm.
because many people they forget that if they don't wake up today, or they never woke up today, or you don't wake up tomorrow,
Hmm.
what are you going to do? Like it completely ends, right?
Hmm.
So I'm grateful to God for waking me up every single day,
Hmm.
because if I'm not there, then what can I accomplish? I have a lot of dreams, I have a lot of aspirations, I have a lot of things to do in the future,
Hmm.
and if I'm not awake, where am I going to complete all of that?
Hmm.
So I say, like, be grateful for each and every single day that has passed, and take it just one day at a time.
Hmm.
That's it. Because I'll tell you, I started college 2 weeks ago, and each and every single day I've taken it one day at a time.
Hmm.
Trust me, it has done phenomenal wonders. I'm even part of the college basketball team just because of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, like, we should. I don't know how much you will think of this, but sometimes I realize I'm grateful enough. Physically everything is all right for me. You know,
Exactly.
no, why I'm saying this is because I know people who have, like, when you see people who are of who end up getting those sort of health difficulties, right?
Hmm, hmm,
And
hmm,
we see how it mentally and their daily lives, how it affects them.
hmm, hmm,
And the fact that it affects their daily life, and we don't have any of that problem. We function,
yeah.
everything for us functions normally. And it might sound very silly for someone, like, that everything is functioning normally for them,
Hmm,
whereas for another person, that they are feeling, they wish that we have that sort of,
hmm,
that
hmm,
the fact that they can be as, physically, in that way they can do what we can do.
hmm,
And
hmm,
like for example, I remember this, he he graduated way before I think even I joined the school, actually.
hmm,
But he was quite well known in our school. He had some nervous or some muscle issue or something ever since since his birth. So
hmm,
he
hmm,
could never walk. So
okay.
so from birth he was never able to walk, so he was always on wheelchair.
Hmm,
and
hmm,
and he had two people or something who, his parents itself had hired these, both of them, and
hmm,
they are the ones who had to take him around every single place that he had to go. And for someone who can't walk,
hmm,
the fact that we can do all these daily functions, and we just take it for granted, right? We just take it
hmm,
lightly. But then there is another person over there who's, who can't do that, and they wish they could do what we are doing. So I think,
exactly.
like, I think you're right about the fact that you should be grateful that you're even waking up
Mhm.
Everything is your hands and legs are completely normal, your brain is functioning well.
Exactly, and you're still in good health.
Yeah, good health. Yeah.
So moving on to the next question now, how do different cultures around the world, celebrate gratitude?
It's very interesting that you're asking this question because everywhere it's very different. Like a lot of people do it for some countries do it for religious reasons. Some
Mhm.
people do it, because of some certain historic moment. Like for example, one of the most well-known one of the most well-known days, even for someone who's not from America, is the Thanksgiving, right?
Yes, yes.
And it's a huge thing where everywhere, like every time on Thanksgiving they the families and their friends, they all gather up, they have a huge dinner, they have a turkey in the middle, right? That's like the main,
Exactly.
the turkey is the main dish of the whole thing. And the
Yeah.
history of the Thanksgiving is the pilgrims, the people who
Mhm.
travel to search for the holy the holy places, right? The
Mhm.
shrines and all.
Mhm.
They ended up surviving for a whole year because the Native Americans taught them how to do fishing and harvesting and
Mhm.
fishing and farming. Sorry.
Mhm.
So they survived the whole. So these pilgrims survived an entire year because of what the Native Americans taught them. So they both of them ended up celebrating like a Thanksgiving in the memory of that. And that has evolved into that. So that if you look at that, they ended up celebrating one Thanksgiving because they were just grateful for the fact that they were able to eat and feed themselves for an entire year.
Mhm.
And that gratefulness is the reason why they have something called Thanksgiving Day. That's evolved into now it's a day where Americans meet their family, like despite how busy their daily lives is. Like even if you're not a family, even if you're a friend, you can, even if you're living in probably a different city from your parents, your friends will invite you for something like that. And
Mhm.
I think it's just a day of, I think, feeling grateful for the people that you have in your lives, and
Mhm.
just having a great dinner like that. And in Japan, they have something called a Labor Thanksgiving Day. Like we have May Day over here, right? Same thing they have over there. So it's specially for the daily workers over there. That's the main reason that they have. And I think even China has something called Mid Autumn Festival. I
Yeah.
think and that's something that goes on for like more than 3,000 years or something like that. And that was for harvest reasons. And for harvest reason is the reason where they had that. And in Chinese households, they just they celebrate, they have a good time. Whereas in Korea, I think they have a similar to like this. I forgot the name of the festival, but it was again a festival because of that originated because of like something to do with harvest. I'm not very sure, but that's similar to like a Thanksgiving sort of a thing. But their way of thanking and show the way of showing gratitude is very different. They
Mhm.
have their own like rituals, they have their own like ceremonies, and they have events and everything. And in that way, it's like respecting that gratitude that that they have. It's a very, it's in that sort of a way. So in every country we have. India, it's very different because in every country they have one sort of a thing for Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
India, almost every state has one Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Like for example, Tamil Nadu has Pongal, right,
Mhm.
which is very well known. And one of the most well known day celebrations in India is Onam, where
Mhm.
and that's one of the most interesting celebrations you see, where everyone in Kerala for a whole week, it's like for someone who's not a Malayali, the only thing we think of is Sadhya, right, for Onam.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a one thing that comes to mind. But if you, I asked one of my cousins who was studying in Kerala,
Mhm.
asked him what do they do for that one week. He's
Mhm.
like they have a lot of things. They apparently, some of them have dance, they have music, they have games, and it's like a celebration. It's a Thanksgiving of gratitude sort of a thing for them. So
Mhm.
that's, and one of the best things of Onam that you see is honor, that is unity, right?
Mhm.
It's like a celebration of unity. At this point, I think Onam has become like a celebration of unity. So, and every place that I've seen, they have their own different and their own specific reasons to be, of showing gratitude. And some of them it's religious reasons. Like for US, it was, the reason was because they were able to feed themselves for for an entire year without any difficulties. That
Mhm.
was the reason they started something like that. So each and every single country that I mentioned specifically, every other country, I'm sure they have more,
Mhm.
celebrations going on. like even in our like for one of the, like for us also, you take for example Christmas, right? In every
Hmm.
Christian Indian Christian households, most of the, like in many houses, the Christmas is most of the times is like, families gather, and they, and we all have a dinner and we all have a gathering. That's also almost like a Thanksgiving. Like in US, they have one day where the family members, friends gather and they have a dinner. India, it happens almost every single time, right? Family
Yeah.
members and friends keep gathering and having their dinner. So
Hmm.
we in India, it's very interesting that they have this celebration almost in each and every state. They have that celebration going on.
Yeah, that's true. Now, how does, showing gratitude
Hmm.
strengthen, various things like friendships, families, or even communication in general?
The main the main fact the main key thing about gratitude is the fact that you should feel grateful about every single thing that's going on, right? Gratefulness is the most important thing about gratitude.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that sometimes even now, that I'm able to meet my friends like maybe only once or twice in a whole month. I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to do only that. But then I know some, and sometimes I keep thinking, that the fact that we meet only once or twice in a month, I sometimes think that's less. But then I know people who can't even meet that often. There are
Mm-hmm.
some friends who meet like once in 2 months or something like that, they end up meeting, or
Yeah.
maybe once in 3 months. Some people don't end up meeting. They end up meeting like after a year or something only. They end up meeting some friends,
Yeah.
and I think it's these little things that happening in your life that sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't take for granted. And I think sometimes it takes a lot of time to have that sort of a realization.
Mm-hmm.
When things are going in a certain pace for you, I think when you're in that moment, you don't end up realizing that there are other people who are probably can't, they don't have this sort of a privilege that you are having. Something that even as simple as meeting your friends once or twice in a month. There are some, and I think the fact that you are very grateful ends up having such a positive sort of like a mindset for you itself, right, with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
that the moment you end up realizing that this one small relationship you have with this person, and you don't want to throw it down, the bin, just because you feel like you're meeting lesser times, and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that you're not able to text this person and stay in touch with this person. And we know so many times this friendship itself has completely faded away, right, because of that. And we have seen that happening. And for me, the fact that I have a couple of friends that I still get to talk to, the fact that my parents, I'm living with my parents now. I know some
Mm-hmm.
people who don't stay with their parents at all, and they end up meeting their parents only once or twice a year, because they're working and they're working in different cities, or they some of them work in Bangalore itself, and they're not able to meet their parents that easily, because
Mm-hmm.
they may probably living somewhere else. So I think the how it builds up a great relationship that you're gonna have with somebody is the fact that you realize, it may be small, it may not, you may not be as close to this person as you probably were earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
still that friendship is holding on. Like we are getting busier in life, but because you get busy in life, I think it's very unfair that you end up blaming that friendship is not going well or something because of how busy your life is. That's just a normal thing, right? When as you get older, more responsibilities and comes, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to sacrifice that sort of a social life, that sort of a relationship. And I think the time to spend ends up becoming very little. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should throw away that even little time you have. You should give your 100% effort. And I think that is very important in making things work. It doesn't matter how long or how much you're doing, but the effort matters. Even if you're busy an entire day and you're not able to text a person, if you take the effort in the end of the day to text the person and talk to the person, see what's going on, and if you put effort to make plans, that I think that itself is a great sort of an investment. You have to put in the time to make a relationship work.
Hmm.
and you will definitely be able to have the willingness to put effort. Definitely will have that willingness to invest that time to make the friendship and the relationship with your family work. The moment you realize, this small thing that you have, some people don't even have that sort of a relationship.
Yeah.
So I think once you end up realizing that, you have that realization, I think you yourself will have the heart to, give in your time, no matter what, no matter how busy you are, you'll have that willingness to give that 100% and make things work.
Hmm.
So I think that understanding, once you have that understanding, I think it'll work very well.
Yeah, that's true. And also building upon what you said, uh, like the little things do matter. So, for
Yeah.
example, like just say, you meet your friend like either in college or in work or maybe sometimes in the evening if you go and meet them.
Mm,
Just say this one line or this one word. Like, I'm extremely grateful for having you in my life. You being a friend, and being there when nobody else wasn't.
mm,
And you just see his or her face, they will light up immediately. It just
mm,
takes the smallest things to actually save a lot of you know
yeah.
a lot of miscommunication.
Mm,
And same thing goes with their family as well. Like nowadays I don't think most of the kids right now, especially part of Gen Z, like our generation, I don't think most of them even show gratitude to their parents. I don't think I've heard like any one person just go up to their dad or mom and just say like, what, I'm grateful I have you guys as a parent, as my parents. I'm
mm,
grateful for what you guys did. Like, it's because of you that I'm here, right?
mm,
Like, I really don't see that. And I think we should start changing that. Like, really, like, you're there because they gave their 100%. Now
mm,
imagine like they decided, what, might as well, I grew up this way. Now I'll give you money, you do whatever whatever you want, and you grow up your own way. Now imagine if they did that.
mm,
Where would we all be?
yeah,
Of
yeah.
course we wouldn't be, in any good position.
Mm,
We wouldn't, even be talking properly. Heck, we would be, you know roaming on the roads,
mm,
or getting into bad company, or even just wasting our time for all we know. But
mm,
it's because of them that we actually came to this point. So please
yeah,
go,
yeah.
just go and communicate this to your parents. Just tell them you're grateful for them,
Mm,
and they will be so happy to hear this from you, your
mm,
friends, your family, any one of them. Like, people who you are truly grateful for. Not just say like, hey, you know what, I'm grateful for you, and then the very next day you show a whole 180. No, not like that.
mm,
If you are genuinely grateful for what they do and what they have brought you to, go and tell them thanks. That would light a day on their face, like a really bright ray of sunshine you would see on their face. Like, imagine like one of your friends, or let's just say you became a parent, and your son or daughter comes up and say, hey daddy, mommy, I'm really grateful for what you did. Now, won't you feel happy? Of course anybody would. So put yourself in their position, and then you see how things will be. And
mm,
of course that would really build a lot of relationships, because nowadays I'm seeing a lot of students, a lot of kids, a lot
mm,
of adults who don't have that connection with their parents like a lot of us we had.
mm,
Because we had respect for them, we had gratitude for them, and we never failed to say it any one of the days which we actually meant to say it.
mm,
So that would really work, and that would really build relationship with your parents, and of course with your friends.
mm,
Because nobody's just going to go to life alone and thinking like, hey, you know what, I'll do everything on my own. Now,
mm,
it's not going to happen. Like, in
mm,
any field you are part of, be it sales, be it a CEO, or be it in law, anything, you always need connections, you always need people who are going to be there for you.
yeah.
Like, I remember watching this podcast. There's one person who said, all you need is just three friends, and you can take a whole country, you can take a whole continent, like you can take over the world.
Yeah.
And that shows a lot of trust and a lot of gratitude.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have any closing statements?
I think so. That's the thing. When you said like miscommunication, a lot of time ends up, ending a friendship and ending a relationship, and it's
Yeah.
very and it's a very unfortunate. Sometimes I feel like maybe from the other side also that miscommunication wasn't intentional,
Hmm, hmm,
and
hmm.
but sometimes people end up taking the wrong way because there was some mistake in the that there was some miscommunication that led to them backing out and
Hmm.
reconsidering that friendship, which is, it's very unfortunate to see that. But I think, like I said again, to make a relationship work, that requires a lot of, a lot of you're pouring out your heart and giving in your time and giving a lot of your time to make a relationship work. But then
Hmm.
again, to have that willingness to make a relationship work will happen only once you end up realizing, that maybe you have three friends in your life, maybe
Hmm.
you have two friends in your life, maybe you have even one friend in your life. But
Hmm.
then if you are having that willingness to put something work, you'll end up realizing how when you realize how grateful you are to even have that one certain person in your life. I think you'll definitely have that willingness to even put, you give your 100% time and work, put it work. I think find I think because sometimes we are having that relationship, and I think we just end up taking for granted, right? uh,
Yeah.
we end up taking granted for the fact that we know, so that we just have one friend, and then we see on Instagram someone is like hanging out with one big gang of friends, and I think people just immediately feel very jealous. But
Hmm.
you don't know how their relationship genuinely is. Like, they probably, those people who are in that that big group of friends, are met like
Hmm.
probably once or twice a month, and you're
Yeah.
meeting this one friend twice, maybe like twice a week probably. That's
Hmm.
a lot more time you spent with, in your friendship, than that person you saw in your Instagram stories.
Hmm. Hmm.
So but then again, I think it takes a lot of time to have that sort of a realization, how precious a relationship and a friendship should be. So once that realization comes, definitely anyone would be willing to, and give for their time out and make a relationship work.
Yeah, that's true. And with that being said, that officially brings us to the end of today's show. A huge thank you to John for joining today's show.
Thank you, Johan, for coming today as well. It was great.
Thank you so much. And remember, guys, we air on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. That's it. If you guys want to contribute to our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. And a huge thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this edition of the Reality Bang, your weekly dose of your power, brought to you by FIBA Online. This is Ajay Johan. Hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you next Monday.